What's up, Portland? John Taylor, founder of PortlandRealEstateExperts.com.
And I'm Kristina Bullock, co-founder of PortlandRealEstateExperts.com.
And we are your host for the show that brings you interesting people talking about what makes them unique,
What makes Portland unique?
and why Portland is such a great place to live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of All Things Portland podcast. I'm your host, John Taylor, along with my lovely co-host, Kristina Bullock. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous today. Good to be here as always. So how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited. We're going to talk to each other and talk to you about just the basics of selling a home, buying a home, investing in real estate. And we get a lot of common questions, so we're going to start out today just with some the most common seller questions.
I'm gonna act kind of like a seller, so I'll be asking John, semi-interviewing, but I'll jump back and forth with answering. So
And I'm going to do my best to answer these.
Yeah.
So
pretending
let's-
like I'm
yeah,
about to
let's
sell my
go.
house.
Yeah.
I am. So if I was going to sell my house, what is the absolute first step? Where do I begin if I'm thinking about selling?
Yeah, so if you're thinking about selling or you're serious about it, I think there's three things that you need to do up front. And that number one is preparing the home to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is pricing the home to sell. And number three is coming up with a marketing strategy. And you're going to want to do that with a professional agent. And and there's a lot of good ones out there. We know a few.
We may know a couple.
We may know a couple, but that's the first thing you're going to want to do is pick an experienced agent and their team, and then walk through them with preparing the home to sell, which is just going through and seeing if there's any repairs that might need to be done, seeing if staging might be, either professionally staged or just a lot of times we can just walk people through and help them stage their house, with the furniture they have.
Do you
by
recommend
decluttering and these kind of things? But
do you recommend a seller interview multiple agents?
I don't think it hurts to interview a few if they don't have a relationship, but I think if they're very comfortable with the first agent they talk to, I think that's okay as well. But it doesn't hurt. I'm okay with people I talk to talking to other people. I think it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I always like to say that we're a partnership. So when I am sitting down with someone too, I want to make sure that we are on the same page. So I don't think it's necessarily a one-way street there. We're in it together. So
yeah, it's an important decision to make, and it's
Mm-hmm.
and you are working as a team. So you definitely want to make sure it's somebody that you're going to be comfortable with, and that they're going to do a good job, and that you're going to the teamwork's going to be there. So
absolutely.
If you feel comfortable with one person talking to them, if not, then interview a few and then pick that person. So
Yeah, I think you'll know when you sit down and interview whether or not that person is good for your team or
absolutely.
not. So.
And they're going to need to help you prepare the home. They're going to need you to help you price the home so it's going to sell, and then come up with a marketing strategy. So those are the first steps you would take.
So
when you're
speaking of pricing a home,
yeah.
how do you go about pricing a home? What are the basics with how much do you put into figuring out what that price is going to be when you put it on the market?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that I want to do when I'm pricing a home is, I'll pull some data and ask some questions over the phone, but I like to see the home before I actually price, really give a price. So
Absolutely.
Because, a house can look one way on paper and a lot different once you get there. So I like to walk through the home, get a feel for everything about the house, the lot, and the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Because, unless it's just a cookie cutter neighborhood and there's just, tons of apples to apples comps, then that's easy to price out. Just, quick look at the house. There's two houses in the neighborhood that are exactly like yours, and it's easy to say that's what yours is worth. But
Yep.
in Portland, there's a lot of neighborhoods that are very unique and they're not cookie cutter. So
Yep.
you really have to
Variety
get
of
a
homes.
feel for where those comps are versus that particular house, and a feel for that pocket in that neighborhood.
Absolutely. That's one thing I noticed moving from other areas to Portland is the variety of homes in one pocket of a neighborhood. So you have different ages of homes, styles, everything.
Yeah,
There's a lot to take in.
It's super important to really narrow that down, and then just knowing the area, knowing the amenities, the close by amenities as well. Schools, parks, all those things that can add or detract value from a home really can make a difference versus just going online and pulling up a couple comps in the area and say, okay, everything in this area is selling for $200 a square foot. That's a quick general way to do it, but you really need to dig deeper than that and see, how that house compares, and is there any extra features or anything that might detract from it. If you're up against a busy street, then your price is going to be devalued a little bit.
So I think a lot of times I've heard, and maybe you have too, what Zillow says the house is worth.
So Zillow is, I do look at Zillow just as a quick baseline. There's a lot of information you can gather on Zillow, but Zillow's pricing is, again, they haven't been inside the house, number one. They're just going by houses that have sold nearby. So unless it's super cookie cutter neighborhood, a lot of times they're not accurate. And if you look right in the fine print on Zillow's website, they'll say they're not accurate.
Right.
And if you go down, they give a price up front, this estimate or whatever, but they also have a range down. If you dig into it more, you'll see that they'll even say they're not accurate. So it's not a bad way. It can give you a baseline, but it's not the best way. You really want an agent's professional opinion to really dig deep into those comps and pricing it to get it priced right. So
we have on the table comparables, and it gives us an idea of where you think the house should sell as is. Are there, when you sit down with somebody, what do you recommend for people to do that are thinking about putting their home on the market, given the condition of the home? If there's repairs that need to be made, do you suggest they put it on as is? Or do they do the repairs if they can, or how do you approach that?
Yeah, just again, asking a lot of questions to find out what, it's all about the client and what their needs are. So, and everybody's different. So I try to find out, first we'll look at the house, and if I see any repairs that are, if the roof, for instance, if it's shot, then we're going to have a conversation about that and how to deal with that. It's best if it can be done up front. It's going to look nicer. But paint, if they can. I think paint can add a lot of value. Paint, carpet, or some, and the very first thing is just decluttering the house. So
absolutely.
The less stuff that can be in the house, the better. But if a house needs paint and the client can afford paint, then that's a good thing that can add value.
How much do you have do you recommend removing all personal photos altogether?
Yeah, you want to declutter and depersonalize 100%.
So get everything in there that says, this is my house, out of the house.
Yeah, and because you don't want the buyer walking through and looking at your pictures and going, oh, that's so-and-so, and they went to school with so-and-so, and they're not looking at your house now. You want them to picture or envision their pictures up there on the wall.
Right.
Or envision their furniture. It's nice to have some furniture in there because it can give depth and show you how things can lay out. But if you have too much furniture, it's too personalized, then they're just kind of looking at it like, they're not visual. You want the buyers to visualize their stuff going in there. So
absolutely.
The less personalized stuff and the less clutter, the better.
Do you recommend, if it's in the budget, of course, having the sellers, if they're still living in the house, have the home staged, or is that?
Yeah, I don't think it hurts to have someone, a professional stager, come over and give those ideas. We're trained in it, and we're experienced at it, and we can help. But there's people that are trained in more depth, and those are professional stagers, and so they can give ideas on where to place a plant and how to arrange the furniture this way, or which furniture you should get rid of. So
maximize space.
At least a consultation on someone that can show you how to do it with your stuff, And if you're vacant, it's nice to have it just fully staged would be ideal.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Do you remember how much quicker the home sells and how much more money?
There's different statistics out there, just depending on if it's the stagers marketing or whatever, but it's, I've seen stuff that says it sells 10% faster and, for 5% more. So I
Got
don't
it.
know what those exact stats are, but I do know when, you and I both, we flip some houses occasionally and, usually, well, the one on 68th, for instance, the buyers came in, or the buyers told their agent that, the house just didn't feel like it had any soul because
Right.
it was vacant. And so I called my stager immediately and I said, we
I
need
do
some
remember
soul.
that.
So she came in, put some soul in it, and multiple offers right away. So staging does make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. So when you're pricing and you've factored in preparing, decluttering, organizing, staging, do you price the home to leave room for negotiations, or do you go right in, or do you come under? What's
Oh,
your...
that's a great question. And I always tell people there's 3 pricing strategies. So we can, after we look at comps, we can price it right at market value.
Mhm.
And that's going to be, right now the average time on the market is roughly 45 days,
Mhm.
depending on the area. And so if we price it exactly where the comps say, then it's probably going to sell in 45 days. And so we know that. If we price it too high, typically what happens is when it's priced too high is you either get no showings or you get a few showings but no offers, and then it sits and it becomes shop worn. So usually when you price it too high, you end up coming down lower than what it should have sold for.
So that's called shop worn?
Shop worn.
That's the word.
It can be shop worn, yeah. So
I don't use that term, but I like it.
And so that is one, and it just depends on people's timing. If they have time and they want to wait, sometimes I've had instances where people just held strong and they waited it out and it eventually sold for close
Absolutely.
to full price. But in general, pricing it too high, it gets shop worn, your favorite term.
Yes, my new favorite term.
And you're going to end up selling for less. And then depending on what the market's like, if the market's strong, in a lot of cases, pricing it low is a good strategy because
I do like doing that myself.
so you price it low and you get a whole bunch of that, creates a whole bunch of activity. It creates a buzz and almost an auction-like feel. And so buyers see the other buyers coming and going, and then you start getting multiple offers. So when everybody knows there's multiple offers, they start bumping their offer up. So it creates that auction kind of atmosphere, and a lot of times it ends up going over what you thought it would have. And it usually sells faster. So that's a great way to price a home. But those are 3 strategies. I recommend it at market value or even below, again, depending on the house and whatnot.
Perfect. So I think you've answered those, perfectly. I don't have anything to add to those. So before we wrap up here, I've got a couple more questions.
Okay,
One, what does
fire
a
away.
seller have to disclose when their house is on the market? What types of things should be disclosed to buyers?
Yeah, if there's any repairs that need to happen or have happened recently, that needs to be disclosed. So if you've recently fixed a roof or septic tank, or if there's something that's not working and you know about it, you have to disclose it.
Absolutely.
So if it's stuff you know about, you have to disclose it.
Yes, that's just always disclose.
Always disclose. Even if it's like, oh, we replaced the roof 5 years ago. It's better to just disclose that.
Get it out there, and then the buyer knows. So,
Right.
and then lastly, what closing costs are involved when you're selling a home?
It's closing costs. So
Mhm.
there's
What's it going to cost you to sell your home?
Yeah, it just depends, but there's a real estate fee. So whatever that is, and everybody's a little different, but typically 6% for a real estate fee,
Mhm.
which is divided up between the listing agent and the buyer's agent.
Yep.
And then there's just seller's closing costs, and so that's the seller typically pays half of escrow, and I always plug in. It usually ends up being a little high, but it's roughly about a half a point. So
I was going to ask. I know he's got
Yeah.
got a method to the madness to
And that's
guesstimate.
usually a little high, so usually the total closing costs will come in a little lower, but that's it. And then if a buyer could ask you to pay for their closing costs, and that's just a negotiation, but you don't have to do that.
Absolutely.
So
I think we've covered the basics of selling. Do you have anything else you'd like to add as far as, professional photography?
absolutely.
Definitely plays a huge part. That's something that I believe in for every listing. I don't care what price point or condition.
More so now than ever because 90% of buyers start their search online. They start online, and and even more so now with COVID and everything, we're selling more houses with just walkthrough or they're seeing it online. So if the pictures don't look great, then they're probably not going to want to see that house.
A lot of the footwork is being done ahead, so they're picking which ones they're actually going to go see.
And taking a picture with your iPhone isn't going to cut it in
And I have a feeling
today's market.
This is going to continue past. This is not just a COVID thing.
Buyers
This is going to be.
They want to see nice pictures, and a lot of them. They want to see videos, and and they want to see drones are big now. So all of those
Neighborhood
things,
perks,
neighborhood.
some of the stuff we do when we market.
So those are all super important.
Yeah, we feature the livability of the neighborhood, especially if it's in walking distance to popular places, or in relation to excellent schools.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, there's so many things to take into consideration. As far as marketing, what do you think?
I was going to say on the pictures, I think it's important to not overdo it too. So there's sometimes
Leave some room to.
If you're make it look too good and then you walk in and they're disappointed, there's always the risk of that too. But a good professional photographer will make it look just exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, just a little sparklier.
A little sparklier.
Yeah. So I think that wraps it up for the seller basics today. If there's, of course, any questions, John and I both can be reached at
971-409-7962.
I am 503-382-7798.
And we are always available to answer questions.
Absolutely.
So.
You can also find us at portlandrealestateexperts.com. Once again, that's portlandrealestateexperts.com. So we're going to take a quick break here if we're all done.
We're all
and
done.
Listen to a sponsor. And when we come back, we'll go into the basics of buying.
Thank you. Have you ever thought about flipping your own home?
Need to sell but cannot afford the repairs?
We have the solution for you. With our Flip Your Own Home program, we can help you maximize your full potential profit.
For a free, no obligation 15-minute consultation, call or text us today at 503-382-7798.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm John Taylor, your host, along with my co-host, Kristina Bullock, and we're going to continue talking about common questions, but we're going to talk about common buyer questions this time. So
Absolutely. So we'll start off at the very beginning. Where do we begin when we're looking to purchase a home? Where do we start?
Where do we start? So
Yeah.
I think you have to start by building your team and determining what that team's going to be, and that's really just a great real estate agent that's going to help you find the home and negotiate a great price on that home and help you through all the pitfalls of repairs and appraisals and all the things that come along with once you find the home, and then a great lender as well. So so the first thing you want to do is after you've picked an agent or sometimes even before, but you want to get approved for, if you're getting a loan, you want to talk to that lender and get your approval. So you know what your maximum price is, where you're comfortable with on the payments and stuff. So,
Absolutely. So
the lender's going to help you determine that.
yeah, by the time you are talking to an agent, you want to have that pre-approval letter ready to go. And you can hit the ground running and not have anything hold you back if you find the home of your dreams. Because if you do it the other way, it's just not the right way to go. You want to make sure
even
you're
if you know you're approved, yes, I make a ton of money. I know I'm going to be approved for a $500,000 home, but you don't have that approval letter to show that your offer is not going to be as strong. So absolutely, when you find the home, you want to have that approval letter to send along with your offer.
It makes a big difference.
Especially
on the
if
seller
it's,
side to
if
see
you're
it.
competing, the seller and the listing agent is going to want to see that for sure.
Absolutely. And one of the other things, so you pick your team, we've got your pre-approval letter. It's also important to know when you're going out there looking, not just what you're approved max up to, but what you want to be spending. So that's the conversation.
Well, yeah, there's a
downward.
difference for
Yeah.
sure. There's some people that are approved for $1 million, but they don't want to be married to their home, so to speak. So, they're more comfortable. We're going to stay at the 750 range because that puts us in a payment that we're comfortable with, and we'll still have money left over to
That's a
go
nice
out on the
range.
weekends. Yeah,
750 range.
yeah, 750 range. Yeah, so,
I want that house. So when you're out there looking, let's say you're a basic first time home buyer, right? Let's just use 350 as a price point. What are we looking for in a home when you're searching with the buyer? What are those? Doesn't matter how cute it is. We want to make sure it has this, this, and this.
Yeah, I always ask people, what are your must-haves?
Mm-hmm.
Do you absolutely have to have a garage? Do you absolutely have to have a yard?
Mm-hmm.
What are the must-haves? What are the deal breakers if it doesn't have that? And then what are the wants?
Yes, they're very different.
If it had this, if it had a garage, if everything else was perfect, it didn't have a garage, I'd be okay with it. But if it had a garage, then even better.
Yeah, I think it's important too. You're going to have a list when you start, and then that's going to change as you see more homes. So that list of must-haves and needs are going to shift as you go out and see homes and realize what area is going to get you what kind of home and in what neighborhood, and you'll be ready to make different sacrifices than when you first started. So being open to the process also is a big, just having guidelines, but also knowing that those are going to shift during your home search.
Things change, and you start to realize maybe I can't get that. And if you have a good agent, they're going to kind of let you know up front. If someone can only afford $250 in our current market, then that's very hard to find, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So if they're like, well, I need 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, and I want to be right in the hot spot of northeast or southeast Portland, you're not going to get that. That's just 100%. But let me send you everything that's out there, and you'll see kind of what you get in your price range, and then they can kind of look at it, and ideally they'll realize quickly, based on what you've told them and what you've shown them, that they're probably going to have to give up that second bath, and they're probably going to have to be okay with a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, or maybe it's an attached home, or
I think that's why it's important to trust who you're working with too, to know that they know what's out there and where those shifts are going to have to happen, and to trust them when you come across a house that's worthy to act quick on, to not have those hesitations and know that you're in good hands and with good advice coming. So
yeah, absolutely.
Trust your instincts too. So let's say we're out there searching, we have a house in mind, we put in an offer. What does that look like? So, what are those steps?
Yeah, so we find the perfect house. We have the approval letter. So then we typically will look at comps in the area and make sure, if it's a 350, that, for instance, that's a good price for that house.
Not just because it was listed at that.
Yeah, and so if the comps say 300,000 and it's been on the market for 100 days and there's no other offers, then we're probably gonna come up with an offer closer to that 300 range. But if the comps say, there's other ones selling for 375, and we know there's multiple offers, so we just have to determine that. And I think being on the other side of it, I don't think enough agents call the listing agent. So I know when I have a hot listing and there's multiple offers, the agents that call me
Absolutely.
and
Start that relationship.
tell me about their buyers, and tell me about themselves. And I've been in it for 28 years now, so I have really good rapport with a lot of agents anyway, and you do too, with as long as you've been at it. So if it's somebody and you've had a good experience with, that's always going to be
It's the
a
other
better-
agent wants to know that you're going to do what needs to happen to get that house to the sale
So
day.
that,
So the
as a
closing
buyer's
day.
agent, that's part of the process is
Making-
calling that agent. And if you don't, I think that's a mistake. But calling that agent and building that rapport. And if there's multiple offers, trying to get the intel, like what do those other
What's
offers
important
look
to
like?
the
How many?
seller, right?
Yes, what's important to the seller? How many offers are there? Are they over full price? And so.
I like to tell any buyers that I'm working with that this is an emotional roller coaster of sorts, to try not to get too attached to the outcome until we know that we are on our way to a pending closing sale, because we can take first position and do our inspections and then find that the seller's not willing to negotiate and it's not worth us to move forward to take on repairs that are going to come in down the road. So we continue searching. So I think I like to tell people, don't get excited until we're out of that. You can kind of get excited when we're out of the home inspection period.
Kind of, yeah.
Kind of. And there's so many things that can change. So it's truly an emotional process. And so a good agent will help you manage those emotions and keep your head in the game. And then on closing day, I say you can get all emotional and be
When you
all
have
of
your
that.
keys.
When you have your keys,
Yeah,
that's
so
when you lose it.
That's that.
You're allowed to get emotional.
It's real estate, and anything can happen. So it's that's what I try to tell them is
Mm-hmm.
until you have those key, it's recorded and you have those keys in your
Mm-hmm.
hand, anything could happen. We're here to help you navigate through any of those issues that
Mm-hmm.
come up along the way, and there will be speed bumps.
There will be issues. So it's a home. Even a
so-
new construction home is going to have items that pop up on an inspection. It's just bound to happen. Now, of course, they're not going to be as big as the older home, but
Right.
so we get a home under contract. We're on our way. That means it's submitted to your lender, knows that you're wanting to purchase this home. The title company has been informed at that point, and it's time for you to then order your inspections. So once we order our inspections, we've got typically 10 business days
Yeah.
to get through those inspections and decide what we're going to ask for with repairs, or if we're going to ask for anything, and if we're going to be moving forward with the purchase as is.
And there's almost always repairs that come up, at least in the home inspection, and it's, and some of them are very small, and the inspectors, they're going to note everything. So I think going through with your inspector and going through with your agent and determining, what are the important things to ask for that, again, a deal killer. Like,
Yep.
if they don't fix this for me, I don't want the house, or I could live with this. So, so there's a lot of that you need to kind of work through, I
Yep.
think.
And before we get to that next step of moving forward, so we negotiate the inspections, and then that next, in between closing day and inspections is the appraisal, right? And so real quick, because we're running out of time here, appraisal, what's the appraisal? And
So the appraisers typically they're not there to inspect the home or look for repairs, but if they see anything glaring, they might bring it up. But typically they are there to determine the value of the home. So they go measure the home.
that's it.
They
Yep.
take pictures of the home, and then they do their own comparable. Just like we would do. They look at all the comps.
They have a little different system. It's a little more in depth, but essentially they've got to come up and determine that the sale of the house is indeed what the value of the house is for the lender, on behalf of the lender.
And your offer is going to be subject to that appraisal. So if it doesn't appraise, then we have to renegotiate with the seller or come up with more money or however. But that's going to determine the loan.
So that's kind of the last point in negotiations before moving towards that closing date.
Yep.
And speaking of, I think it's important to note for buyers that it's what we're doing here is a service to the buyer. We're here to help you find a home, but it's not a service that you actually pay for. The
That's
seller generally pays in 9 out of 10 deals,
Yeah,
it's the seller paying
the seller pays the fee
for our
It-
services.
It's a listing. It's a listing fee. It's a contract they have with the listing agent, and then we have a contract with the listing agent as a buyer's agent that they're going to split it, and so we get paid.
Mm-hmm.
We get paid by the seller through the listing agent.
So yeah, sometimes people don't understand that part, that a buyer does
Yeah.
not have to pay out of pocket or anything extra for our services. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't you use an agent?
And we don't get paid until it closes. So
Yeah.
it's in our best interest to help you, navigate through this and find the perfect home and help you get it closed and get your keys and get moved in and then be happy.
Then be
So,
super happy.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think that covers. I mean, is there anything else before we?
I think there's probably a lot more questions, but for the time we have,
Those are the basics.
Those are some basics, and again, we're always available to answer any other questions that you may have. So
Absolutely. PortlandRealEstateExperts.com. We're going to take another quick break, and we'll see you in just a bit.
thank you.
You want the absolute best for yourself, and you want it to be easy. That's why we created Green 85. It helps with detoxifying the body gently. We're proud it's chemical-free, unlike almost all other supplements you'll find. Bottom line, Green 85 will get you healthier. We look forward to hearing what Green 85 did for you.
To get this product and our other amazing products, go to chemicalfreebody.com. That's chemicalfreebody.com.
Welcome back, everyone. John Taylor, your host, along with our co-host, Kristina Bullock. And we brought in a guest today, our local mortgage expert, Todd Johnson, to help us with some of the basics on how to get a mortgage and get the process started.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first question, where does someone begin if they're interested in getting a home loan? Where do they start?
Well, look, I mean, the consumer out there that is afraid to take that first step or doesn't know how to take their first step, you got to contact your local lender, right? And or a lender. You can do it through your bank. There's a lot of different ways, but once you begin to get with a specific lender and gather some baseline information, at that point is when you can begin to formulate a plan and determine what you're going to qualify for. So on my end of things, if people come to my team and they work with me, we would gather a file, right? We're going to ask you some basic information. We're going to ask you your full name. We're going to get your social, your date of birth, where you've lived for the last 2 years, where you work, how you're paid. If it's a salary or hourly, we're going to verify some employment. We're going to pull credit. It's relatively painless. You can do it in 5 minutes. But once we know your income and we know your assets and we know the credit score, it's very easy to determine what is going to be your max purchase price, right? And your max loan amount. So from there, we would talk about comfortabilities.
Right.
Sometimes people don't understand that they can adjust a W-4 exemption where they're going to net more money each month because, again, the idea is they would have offsetting tax deductibility. And we've talked a little bit about that before where with some of the new tax laws, they may not have the deductibility and the standard deduction may be in excess and they might not need the other deductibility. But owning the home is going to be far better than continuing to rent. So
Question, once you pull that credit score and they've got a pre-approval from you, do you tell everyone what not to do at this point? What do you not do?
Well,
right?
look, it really-
you don't go buy another car.
Yeah, I
for
mean,
example.
it really depends on what their economic situation is and where they are. But generally, if you're getting ready to buy a home, don't go out and apply for more credit. Don't go buy a new car.
Right.
Hold off on doing some of these things because it's really easy to purchase a car after you purchase a home. So, but yes, we would review based on each client's specific situation, the do's and don'ts. For some, you got to be a little more hypercritical because they may be at the cusp of of where the lending limitations would be based on a credit score. Where you may have somebody that's working at Intel as an engineer and they're making 100 and some thousand a year, where debt ratios and their credit scores are all good, them going out and buying a car may have no effect
Got
or
it.
detriment on purchasing a home. So
Got it. Okay, so you've got the pre-approval. They are gearing up. What are the options for a down payment? That's the next question. How much should someone put down, or how do you decide that?
So again, what I do with people, depending on their price range and the options, in general, if it's a first-time home buyer, we're looking at minimal down payment. There's really 3 approaches. One approach would be conventional. If they have good credit and good credit score and low debt ratios, we may just use a traditional 3% down conventional type first-time home buyer program. If they have some credit challenges or maybe higher debt ratios, we may use an FHA program. And in an FHA loan, it would require 3.5% down. The benefit of an FHA loan right now are the interest rates are extremely low. So you could have a low credit score and still qualify for a 2.25% 30-year fixed rate loan. The FHA loan, the only downside that an FHA loan has is the inability to eliminate the mortgage insurance without selling the home or refinancing it into a conventional type loan product.
What is mortgage insurance for someone who might not know?
Mortgage insurance protects the lender against the buyer or the borrower from defaulting on the loan.
Okay.
So it doesn't protect anybody but us. Some people will say or believe the buyers here that mortgage insurance is bad. It's not necessarily bad. If you're a first-time home buyer and you're putting minimal down and you have great credit, your mortgage insurance premium on a conventional loan may just be a very small percentage, typically 0.3 to 0.35% of the loan amount. So for every $100,000 you're borrowing, if it was 3.35, that's $350 annualized. It's not a bunch, it's $30 a month.
Right.
So it's a necessary evil. It allows the consumer, the buyer, to get in with minimal out of pocket. And in a conventional loan, the mortgage insurance can go away down the road when you prove that you have a 20% equity position. So
Perfect. So another concern buyers might have is that their credit, you touched on it a second ago, but they might not have good enough credit. So
yeah, lots of people think that they need to work on credit and that maybe they had some collections or challenges in college and they didn't pay some bills. I would tell you, do nothing. Let us pull your credit and let us figure out exactly what your score is and what has caused the score. If it's lower than anticipated, what's the culprit? And then we'll run what's called credit analytics, and we'll determine a specific game plan that will help bring the credit up. And it is extremely quick, it's easy, and it's effective, where you can take somebody that might have a 580 credit score or 560, in the fives, and through very small changes, immediately get them up into the 6s, and even in sometimes the 7s by making small changes. But I would tell people, don't pay off a collection, don't pay down debt because you're working on fixing your credit. It's a mathematical model that we run based on specific algorithms, and we do it through the credit reporting companies that we work with, and it will tell us based on your situation what your credit score is now, what can be done in order to improve it. So that would be my advice as far as how to handle it and what to do.
So wait till you speak to a loan officer or mortgage
So no
banker.
matter how bad they might think their credit is, they should at least talk to a lender and find out, it sounds like in a lot of cases you can actually improve their credit score.
And people will think, they'll look at Credit Karma and they'll use that as an evaluator. It really isn't an accurate representation when you pull a mortgage credit report. You're pulling a 3-file merge of all of the bureaus. And I would say, take the angst out of the whole equation, get your credit pulled, pull all 3, a mortgage credit report, and look at it, and then run what's called credit analytics. But in some cases, you may have a 620 or a 630 credit score. It doesn't matter. You can use an FHA type of a loan with 3.5% down, and still, right now, today's rates, you're gonna have a 2.25 rate or 2.5. It just depends, but the rates are gonna be super low, and it's going to allow you to have a higher debt ratio and qualify for more home.
Speaking of money down, are there, what options are there? I know, people can receive gifts from family members. What other options are there for down payments to help?
Yeah, I mean, look, the with rates being so low, every $1,000 you put down saves you about $4 to $4.50. So the idea of being able to create 100% financing can be extremely beneficial. Currently, there's really 3 programs that create 100% financing. One is temporarily on hold, and it's a grant program that was attached to the FHA loan that gave you the 3.5% down. The other 2 programs would be a USDA, which is really, it has some income limitations, and it's really rural based. Rural in our community here in the Portland metro area would be areas such as Canby, Banks, Forest Grove, areas Sandy, Boring, Malala. There's a lot of outlying areas that aren't necessarily far away, but those would qualify. But it's based on income, and also they have to have the credit score required. But great program, super low mortgage insurance premium, just a little more hypersensitive on debt ratios. So, but it can be a great program. The best 100% program on the market by far is if you're a veteran. So if you're a veteran, use it, take advantage of it. The misnomer with a lot of veterans is they can only use it once. That's false. You can use it over and over and over. And the interest rates are super low. There's no mortgage insurance. And for those veterans that have any kind of what's a disability, some might have a 10% disability or a 20%, you automatically negate what's called the VA funding fee. So that saves you a bunch of money. And it's, even though it's financed into the transaction and it really doesn't affect your monthly payment that much, if you have any VA disability, eliminating the VA funding fee is a huge benefit. But as a veteran, use it because you can use it over and over and over, and it's not a one-time thing.
That's great.
Perfect.
What's the loan amount?
Well,
Maximum loan amount.
the max loan amount on a standard VA loan is $510,400. However, in January of this year, what would be considered high balance VA loans, it used to be that you had to put the 25% differential down. That went away. So if you're a veteran and you qualify for $1 million 100% loan, you can get it.
Wow.
No problem. So there really isn't a limit in most cases for the consumer. It's going to be based on where what they qualify for based on their income and their credit.
So 0 down, $1 million house.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
You could do
Any
that.
vets out there looking for $1 million home?
You could do that as a veteran. You could definitely
And what
qualify.
about the FHA? What's the maximum?
Now, well, that's a little bit of a loaded question because FHA has different loan limits based on county. In our tri-county area, it's $490,050. So $490,050 is the max base loan amount for FHA.
Gotcha.
It's going to get you a really nice house in the Portland area.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, with only 3.5% down.
Yeah.
Now you had mentioned gift funds.
Yep.
So yeah, if you're a buyer and you have a family member, a very close friend that's been part of the family that we can create the story around, you can use gift funds for the down payment. And you can do that not only for FHA, but you can use it for other programs as well. So using gift funds is a great way to create the down payment in order to get you into that first house.
Do the gift funds have to go directly to escrow? Do they need to sit in an account with you for a while, or how do those work?
Here's my general advice with gift funds. If you're gonna get gift funds, don't move the money.
Okay.
Moving money creates a challenge with the paper trail associated with where the money came from. And there's rules with gift funds that if we just wire the funds on specific types of loan programs from, let's just say it's a parent, it can be much easier for them just to wire at the time we need the funds directly to escrow when they find the home versus moving the money to the kid and then having to do this paper trail. So I would tell you, don't move money. If you know you have access to the gift funds, know how much it's going to be. Make sure the person gifting the money has the capacity to gift it, meaning they're not going to borrow it on a credit card or something. But again, there's some caveats to all of it. Just don't get the funds moved, and that will simplify the process.
Call Todd.
So we're
I'll help you.
yeah, call Todd. So we're running out of time. So just real quick, just give us your top 3 things that if you're going to buy a home, what are the first 3 things that someone should do?
If you-
Summarize what we just.
I would tell you, here's the 3 things. If you're getting ready to buy a home, apply for the loan so you can determine what you're going to qualify for and if there's any pitfalls. If you think that your credit is challenged, don't try to fix it yourself. Again, get the credit pulled, run the credit analytics, and determine what and if it is going to need to happen in order to increase that credit score. That will be a benefit. And the third thing is, don't go out and apply for a bunch of new debt. Don't go buy a car. Don't go get new credit cards. Just keep your nose clean, pay your bills on time. I can't tell you how many times I see people that have messed their credit up for as little as a $20 a month payment that they just didn't make the payment, and it'll hurt you. So apply for the mortgage, get pre-approved. Don't try to fix your credit on yourself. If you haven't, run credit analytics. And the third one is, don't go in and start applying for more credit.
Wonderful.
That's awesome advice. And as always, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
That was
always
perfect.
welcome on our show.
Thanks.
We enjoy having you on here.
That was fun.
And thanks everyone for listening and or watching. And
Yeah, as you know, Todd is a wealth of information, so you know how to reach him at.
Phone number, cell, get me anytime, 503-706-6628 or toddjohnsonteam.com, and you'll get me there.
Yeah, we'll make sure to put that in the comments for you guys, and have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.
have a great day, everyone.